All right, howdy there. So, in this lesson, what we're going to be doing is looking at something that can be a little bit more of a tricky part in RPG, but it's one of the more important parts, and they're called switches. And what switches are in programming is that they're used when some event in your gameplay needs to occur before another event. Okay, so in this lesson, there's also two types of switches. In this lesson, we're going to look at something called a self switch. So a self switch is used when the player goes to the same event or character multiple times in a row, and each time something new happens. So from my game's perspective right now, if I play my game, for example, so I go to play my game. If I go up to this girl, she tells me the same story. Welcome to the land of Nod. I hear you've been awoken from a bad dream. Your father's been taken. What? My father? Is this some kind of bad dream? Nope, not a bad dream. You need to go collect a key and get some armor from the chest and go into the cave to start your adventure. So that's fine and dandy, but here's the problem. If I go up to her again, she says the exact same thing as if I've never talked to her before. I like to refer to this as dementia. Dementia means that they've completely lost their memory of ever talking to you before. So what self switches can do is they can have it so that when you go up to her a second time, so if you go up to an event or character multiple times, something new might happen. Okay? So here's the programming end. So at the moment, her event just has her talking to me, and it'll happen over and over and over and over again. Working switches always have two parts. So first of all, there's something that has the event command of turning some sort of switch on. And I'll show you what that is at the moment. So we're going to insert another event that after she talks to me, that she turns on, and I think I want a self switch. I'll talk about control switches later, but a self switch is if it goes to the same event. You want her to say something different the next time. So I'm going to have her turn on a self switch. There's self switches A through D. I'm going to start with just A, and I'm going to turn it on. Okay, so what happens here is I'll talk to her, and then what will happen, this is red here because you don't actually see it happen in the gameplay, but it still happens. So there's a self switch A that used to be off will be turned on. Okay, so that's in the gameplay. But the question is, when it's turned on, what does it actually do or activate? So in this particular case, it will activate any page on this event, because it's a self switch, has to be on the same event command list of events. It'll activate any page that has the self switch as a condition. So what I'm going to do next is create what happens the second time I talk to her. So to do that, you can create a new event page. So now I've got two events. My new event page is totally blank. So I've got my original event here. Okay, she turns on the self switch, and then this second event, as long as I make it that once the condition of the self switch A, so if once the self switch A is on, then whatever I put in my event commands or my graphic, that's going to happen next. Okay, so I need to have her same graphic. So her graphic is number 7. So I'll go back here and I'll enter in the exact same graphic. Okay, and I want her to say, so this is the second time I talked to her, I want her to say, I'm just going to call her girl, I forget what I called her before. I already told you, get armor and a sword and head into the cave to find your dad. Okay? So the idea here is that when I come up to her, this first page will happen, and after it happens, she'll turn on a self switch A, which will activate any page that has self switch A as a condition. So if I go to page 2, since I've made it a condition, this page will be activated, and I will hear her say this to me the second time. So let's see if it works. Okay, so I'm going to play my game. Go up to her. She's going to tell me, welcome to the land of Nod, your father's gone, you have to get armor and a sword, etc. But if I go up to her a second time, so what just happened after I talked to her was the self switch was turned on, which means she's going to say, I already told you, get armor and a sword and head into the cave to find your dad. Another case where self switches can be helpful, there's multiple. You should actually have self switches on almost all characters in a good game. But if I go up to this chest right now, I can collect a key and some armor. We talked about how to get stuff before. But the problem right now is that I can get a key because that chest has dementia. I can get a key about 100 times. So you can see here, if I press my escape button, I have 9 swords, or 9 shields and 9 keys. And I could get an infinite number. So a self switch could be helpful. I'll just exit here. A self switch could be helpful also on this chest, where I could get the key and the shield, turn on. So exactly the same programming, because it's a self switch. It's going to be going to the same event or character and something new happening. So I could turn on the self switch of A again, and I could then have a second event page where maybe even on that second event page, so on the second event page, maybe I could even have the graphic look different. So instead of being a chest that looks closed, it could be a chest that looks open. Okay, so you kind of get the sense here. On page 1, it'll look closed, you'll get stuff, you'll turn on a self switch, and as long as I make the condition that once the self switch A is on, the graphic will appear open. You don't even have to have it say anything, or if you wanted to, you could insert a text saying, you have already collected the shield and sword. Okay? So again, that's a working self switch. So again, a self switch, or switches have 2 working parts. It's first of all the event command of turning the switch on, and then it is the condition on any next page, the condition of that self switch being turned on, and then that event will be activated. Okay, I'll show you one more after this. We're already 7 minutes into the video, but we'll show you one more self switch in just a second here. So I'm going to apply this, hit OK. I'm going to play my game and make sure that this self switch works so that when I go to the chest, I can't collect multiple swords. Okay, so congratulations, you've collected a key and some armor. After I've done that, the self switch is turned on. You can even see the chest is now open because it's activated that second event, and it will tell me you've already collected the shield and sword. Okay, another thing that these can be used, there's so many things these can be used for. You could turn one character into another character, like turn some character into a frog after you talk to them, whatever you'd like to do. But this can be also helpful with battles. So if you want to make a character disappear after you've fought them, so let's say, again, the battle won't be set up very well, but let's say there was this girl and you wanted to battle her. We'll talk about battle processing in a different video, but if you wanted to battle her, you could then afterwards insert the self switch A turning on, and then make a new event page that has a condition of self switch A being on, and then have the graphic gone. So literally all that's going to happen here is you'll fight, you'll turn on the self switch, which will activate this page, and that character will disappear when you go back into the gameplay. Otherwise you'll be able to battle them over and over. So I'll just show you that this one works, although the battle scene won't be that interesting to you. It might take a little bit longer than is necessary, but here's another amongst many. I forget where she is. Yeah, here we Okay, so sorry about that loud music there, but that's the battle music, I guess. You can probably change that as well. But what you can see now is she just disappeared. So I defeated her. I know they were ghosts, but using a self switch can also make that character disappear. So that's it for self switches. In the next video, or in another video, what you're going to see is we look at something called event-dependent switches, which is used when a player has to do a certain event in order for an event in a different place to be activated. So maybe you have to go talk to a grandpa before you're allowed to go and get something from the grandma or something like that. So those are event dependent because they're on different locations.